Our last section covers two-way frequency tables. And number 6, it says a two-way frequency table shows data that pertains to two different categories. Sometimes the sample space is represented using a table of counts. Number 6, a store has 48 different phones available with or without caller ID and with or without a speakerphone. The number of phones with the sorry, the number of phones with and without these features are shown as in the two-way frequency table below. Letter A. How many of the phones have caller ID? Well, there are 48 phones, right? Caller ID would be the top line, and my total there is 20. So 20 phones have caller ID. What is the total number of phones that the store has available? 48. If a phone is chosen at random, what is the probability that it has caller ID? Using a calculator, give your answer as a decimal, rounded to 3 decimal places. So this is a 20 out of 48, which is going to give me 20 divided by 48 is going to give me 0.417. And I really should have put an approximation sign here because this is not an exact answer. All right, D says, a phone is chosen at random from the ones available at the store. To 3 decimal places, find the probability that the phone has A, a speakerphone. All right, well, speakerphones, we had 18 with caller ID. We have 16 with no caller ID. So that makes for 34 total. So I just want you to know they're basically adding these two numbers together to get this. Same thing here. To get the 14, they added the 2 and the 12. It works the same way if you go across. So, speakerphone, there are 34, right? 34 out of 48. So 34 out of 48. Now, again, I'm going to do the 3 decimal places. So I've got approximately 0.708 because I look at that fourth number. If that fourth number is not 5 or bigger, this number stays where it is. I'm going to pull the rest of question 4 just kind of right here so we can still see our data set, the table itself. I want to know the probability that it has a speakerphone and caller ID. Well, how many phones have speakerphone and caller ID? Well, I know that this is my speakerphone column, right? And I know that this is my caller ID row. So I'm looking for the cell where they meet out of the entire possible answers. So that's going to be 18 divided by 48. Gives me, and notice here, I'm going to put equals 0.375. Now, I can say that this one equals because I did not round this. It was written exactly like that. It terminated. That means that the decimal ended. All right, I want a speakerphone, but does not have caller ID. So I want it to be a speakerphone, but does not have caller ID. That is now, sorry, trying to find a different color highlighter here. That's this category, right? The speakerphone with no caller ID would be 16 out of 48. So 16 divided by 48, 0.333 repeated. And our last one, I want speakerphone or has caller ID. Okay, I'm going to kind of take this into account here. Well, we already know that we have 48 total phones, right? How many speakerphones have caller ID? 18. How many speakerphones do not have caller ID? 16. How many phones have caller ID but do not have speakerphone? 2. Now, just realize that this category right here, it doesn't have caller ID and it's not a speakerphone. So I'm not including these 12 basically. So I'm hoping I get 36 here. 18 plus 16 plus 2 gives me 36 over 48 gives me 0.75. Again, I'm not going to put an approximation that is equal to it. So here we had to add separate little categories. Please note, you cannot add 34 and 20 because 18 is included in both of those sets. So you have to add them individually, or you would have had to subtract 18. Because if I would have done this, 34, which is the total of speakerphones, right? This is speakerphones. And say I add the 20, which is caller IDs. But remember that 18 was in both this set and this set. So I would have had to subtract 18 there. Let's see if that works. 34 plus 20 minus 18 gave me that 36 from earlier. On to your final debriefing.